I would like to ask the Chief Minister if he will make a statement about Brexit negotiations with representatives of the governments of Ireland and Northern Ireland.
Chief Minister to reply.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to thank the Honourable Member for his question and for his interest in the Brexit process, which I have said on many occasions has the potential to impact on the Isle of Man and which is now entering a new phase. As honourable members are very much aware, the Isle of Man is not part of the formal Brexit negotiations, which are being conducted between the UK Government and the European Commission, as mandated by the European Council. That is to say, the other 27 EU member states. As we also know, neither Ireland nor Northern Ireland are directly involved in these formal negotiations, although clearly the Irish Government is closely involved in the EU side and the politicians from Northern Ireland are having their say on the UK side. However, the island has a good degree of informal contact with the Irish Government and senior politicians in Northern Ireland through the British-Irish Council, where discussions have been held on Brexit. We have made clear during the course of those discussions how the Isle of Man's current relationship with the EU will fall away when the UK leaves the EU, and also what the potential impact of Brexit may be for the Isle of Man. In addition, through our engagement with the UK Government, both at political level and across a number of policy areas, we are inputting into the UK Government's side of the negotiations, and this will be especially important as they enter the next phase. We have, for example, been clear that we strongly support the continuation of the common travel area. But what our relationship with the EU will look like depends first and foremost on what the UK can achieve in terms of its own relationship with the EU. Honourable members will be aware that in the past few days, the European Commission and the UK Government have issued a joint report which sets out the progress which has been made on the key areas identified in the first phase of talks, namely citizens' rights, Northern Ireland and the financial settlement. On the basis of the progress made so far, the European Commission has recommended to the European Council that talks have made sufficient progress to allow for the discussions to move on to the next phase. We will continue to engage with the UK negotiators over the coming months as these talks progress, and I will continue to keep honourable members updated.
Supplementary. Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. President. Has the Chief Minister discussed with colleagues anywhere about the potential to mirror a potential Northern Ireland model which might be considered Brexit light, or at least something to, continued involvement in the customs union, and whether that's been part of his discussions at all?
Chief Minister to reply.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I do thank the Speaker for a valid point. I know that there is talk about this. It's very topical at the moment, but it's difficult to see how this might present an opportunity to the Isle of Man. It could mean that trade in goods between the Isle of Man and Northern Ireland could be subject to tariffs, although it's very unlikely. Nor it is a position which the Isle of Man would seek to emulate, as the majority of our trade in goods is with the UK. And so we would wish to remain in customs union with the UK, really. So you could see opportunities, Mr. President, but I think based on the fact that we do 80% plus trade with the UK, that's the way we have to go.
Supplementary, Miss Edge.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just wondering if the Chief Minister has just mentioned the common travel area with regards to Manxmen and their passports and where it doesn't give them the rights to work in the EU. Has any discussions taken place around that?
Chief Minister to reply.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, we have had discussions on the relationship for Manx people, as they say, and the freedom of rights of the movement of people. That's been one of our concerns when we've been away having discussions on Brexit. But it's not just the freedom of movement of people, it's the freedom of movement of goods, whether that be agriculture, fishery, manufacturing parts, etc. So all these things are being taken into account. We have put our concerns over, and we have regular meetings to discuss that, and that will be part of my update in the new year, Mr. President.
Member for Douglas East, Mr. Robert Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. President. In light of the O'Brien report on the circumstances that the Republic of Ireland find themselves in as the UK removes itself from the EU, does he share a recognition with me that 85% of Republic of Ireland trade occurs with the UK? So it isn't so much about Northern Ireland and its relationship with Southern Ireland, but actually it's more about Ireland's relationship with its profoundly biggest trading partner. Thank you.
Chief Minister.
Thank you, Mr. President. The honourable member does raise a very interesting and valid point, but at this moment in time, the UK has made it absolutely clear that they have no intention of retaining customs union with the European Union, and therefore, whilst all these various talks go on, which is highly speculative at the moment, and as I'm more than happy to give Timble members an update in the new year, if the UK's stated position, Mr. President, is that they do not want to keep customs union with the European Union, then some of the ideas that are being floated at the moment cannot happen, because you can't remain in EU customs and then want to negotiate WTO negotiations with the rest of the world.